Hello everyone, welcome back. Another long it's been a long time. It's been a while, but we're here again, hosted by Jamf.
I'm so glad that it's not just me.
No, it's everyone. So I've got a few talks for you this evening. First of all, say thanks to Jamf, my employers, but also to Aaron, who's stayed to do all the AV support and everything, and hopefully have some fun with us as well. Thank you very much.
Yay. Caveat, you may think the mics are broken, they're just for Zoom, they're just for the recording. So you won't hear them come through, they're just for the recording for afterwards.
We are recording.
Does this still
swear as much
It's working, but it's the most disconcerting thing in the world, not being able to hear yourself talking in the back, but it's working.
And also thanks to they're not here, but they've helped organise. We've got Lysettes, Christina, and there is someone else they mentioned on the last slide. Joanna over in the US, who helps organise all our community stuff and provide all the lovely food. Please eat it all up, because otherwise we've got to do something with it at the end. I don't know, you don't want to make pizza angels. See how creative we can be. But enjoy it. So first up we have David and Joe to talk about this. Off you go.
Hey everyone. So hi everyone. We've been working on a project to take what has been let's call it a traditional management workflow of our various many Jamf instances, and to define and codify all of that platform, all of that service as code. So we're going to be talking today a little bit about that journey, and then we're going to be showing some demos. If we have time, there will be a Q&A. If you have any questions, you can always catch us afterwards, see how we go. Right, I probably need to be actually closer to my laptop because I need to, I've got a beautiful assistant. Amazing, cool. So a little bit about us. We both work for a horse company, tongue in cheek. So I'm a platform engineering lead in the workplace directorate in Modern Workplace, called Modern Workplace at Lloyds Banking, one of 38 directorates for 100,000 people. We're a small country, it's massive. And I've been working with macOS since 10.6. And I really learned macOS really from that gentleman over there in the corner, Monsieur Ben Toms, about 10 years ago or something like that. I think we were trying to work it out. Anyway, so that's me. And pass you over to Joe.
Talking to the mic doesn't work. Yep. Hello, I'm Joe. I've been at Lloyds for the horse company, for two and something years now. Been doing Mac stuff for maybe 5 or 6. I can't remember. Sort of went through support, ended up as, what are we? DevOps,
platform engineering.
We're in our own corner.
Software engineers.
They keep us in the cupboard. They do keep us in the cupboard. When this was made, I obviously remembered that 10.12 was my first one. I'm a bit of a rookie, really, in terms of numbers. And you're standing in front of my lovely face there, David.
Sorry.
Apparently, I'm an F1 car. I do like a bit of F1. If we were at the pub afterwards, bit of F1, I'd love an argument. That'd be very good. But yeah, that's us.
Cool. Right, so just a quick thing about the estate and kind of what was the context, the backdrop to how we got started on this journey. So Lloyds is, like I said, about 100,000 people, of which we've got about 5,000 Macs today. We've just started a device choice program. We anticipate that when we light that up for knowledge workers, that's going to grow to about 15 to 20,000 over the next, probably next year or two. But that's in the backdrop of being in a highly regulated environment, and the lion's share of everything that we do is obviously very Windows centric. We've got why have one when you can have 5 Jamf Pro environments as we do, 2 of which are classified as production, although for distinct user archetypes, and then they've both got a route to live in front of them as well. So some of our challenges are, I wouldn't say quite MSP, but MSP-esque. And actually, the origin of all of this was that before I was working in the Mac team for Lloyds, I delivered Azure Virtual Desktop for about 20,000 people. It was crazy number. But everything in that implementation was all done with pipelines. It was all deployments into Azure, and so having completed that project and thinking, wow, this is great, coming back to Jamf, I had not done it for a couple of years and going, oh, oh, I can't do so many of these cool things that I'd got used to doing, working with a completely different workload. So I went from there. So yeah, a little bit more on the journey. Should we talk about some of the challenges that we have in Lloyds banking?
Yeah, so you sort of jumped the gun a little bit on the left-hand side.
Come.
Yeah, so sorry, I was, we sort of bled into this slide a little bit. Being the sort of business that we are, lots of governance, lots of waiting, pace of change is slow, even as we are at the moment. And we have accuracy problems. You can imagine having 5 instances across 2 root to lives, trying to keep things the same as change moves through those root to lives. We end up with things going wrong. It takes a while. We've got lots of teams. Oh, sorry, you're changing the antivirus. Oh, well, then we need to speak to that team, and they're 4 hours away. And so we end up with this problem of like, we really want to get stuff done. Our Mac engineers want to get stuff done, but we're burdened by just how we progress change and the lack of accountability in it. And the flip side of that as well is when we do get change and we mess something up or we break something, rolling it back is just as hard. Trying to find out where the change come from. Yes, it's in a ticketing system and stuff like that. But when you have that many instances, tracking the specifics of your change, it becomes a real challenge in both directions. There's a few more things listed here about testing and validation, and I'm not going to do the year 6 thing to read off the board. You can read it. But yeah, in other words, it's tedious. And I think moving on to the next bit.
Just before you do,
Oh, yeah.
the one other thing that we have to do is that we have to attest to what is the production config in case we ever get audited. So if we ever get asked, okay, what does your tenant look like? We need to be able to produce a workbook, which is smart speak for an Excel spreadsheet. So you can imagine as your tenant swells and grows, you have hundreds, thousands of things sometimes that need to get tracked and maintained and kept. So that's a really boring job for our engineers to maintain and keep as well. And we'll come back to that point a little bit later.
It's a good point. It's the next slide. What that results in is really the engineers we do have end up quite unhappy because they're doing lots of tedious work. We've hired these people in who are great Mac engineers, and they're spending a lot of their time doing bureaucratic, ticket this or talking to that person, that, and actually not engineering. And it really sort of detriments our engineer experience being such a large name. You think, oh, it's a decent place to work, and it really is. But this particular process, it weighs them down. And the feedback we get is that we really wish sort of an easier way of doing this. Hence, a bit more about that.
Yeah, so in short, it's pretty painful at times engineering at Lloyds. And one day over a beer, where all the best ideas are formed, we were shooting the breeze over, how can we make things better? And someone just threw up, oh, can you do it with Terraform? And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Went and had a little look, and at the time there was I guess call it a proof of concept implementation. So, and that gave me the confidence that it was technically viable, but it was nowhere near the level of completion and maturity that we would need to have it in a enterprise context. And so we therefore started to work on what we're going to be showing you shortly.
The solution.
So when we talk about what we've built, so we have, going back at the beginning, we've built a whole SDK for Jamf Pro, covering both Classic and Jamf Pro APIs. We have something in the order of 700 to 800 different CRUD functions now covered. So create, read, update, delete, list, and then all the other weird and wonderful things in and around the API for those of you that's ever done that kind of engineering in the world of Jamf. I'm sure you have. So once we had that SDK done, that gave us obviously the communication and the abstraction against all the APIs, and then on top of that, laid over that, consumed by that, shall we say, is the Terraform provider itself. Terraform providers are written in Golang, as are many DevOps tools, same as like Docker and Kubernetes and similar. So the SDK is all written in Go too. And that is then Terraform in and of itself is pretty dumb. It doesn't do anything. You plug in the functionality you want it to leverage and use, and so you can have in parallel in your Terraform code something for Jamf Pro, but you could have something for Entra. You could have something very recently Apple Business Manager as well, and you can have all of these things working in one, or modularized sets of Terraform code. And then the actual orchestration layer, the thing that makes that all the work, it's going to be a pipeline. There's lots of different pipeline tools out there today, whether it be Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions, GitLab. You might use GitHub. Yeah, so there's many ways. Harness, harness. Oh dear. And then, but the thing actually that wraps it all together is a set of principles and ways of engineering called GitOps. And so the impact of changing and doing everything as code and moving from ClickOps to GitOps is actually probably going to be the biggest hurdle that we're actually going to face as part of this journey of change. It's one thing to change tools, but changing ways of working is sometimes harder to to evolve and to shift, I suppose, all the learning as well. But we're confident we're going to do it, and we're confident we're going to get there. So a little bit about the architecture. Forgive my really basic diagram. So Terraform has the concept of a backend, and that is where it records state. And by state, it means for every resource that is under its management, it will keep a record of and track the state of that resource in what is basically a really glorified flat JSON file. And you can store that in lots of different backend locations. You can have that hosted directly into cloud, cloud storage somewhere, but you can also have it abstracted away with services like Terraform Cloud from HashiCorp directly. But unless if you're doing full lifecycle management, you will always need a place to host your state. And then you've got moving down in the diagram, you've got the pipeline runner. So a runner is basically a task server that exists only for the time in which it takes to complete that pipeline. So what does that mean? Think of it as like an ephemeral server. So it gets spun up, does a thing for 5 minutes, then gets blown away. So you don't have to do it that way, but that's typically the way it's done these days. Certainly on modern pipeline tooling. And then so within that, you have your HCL code that is then compiled and run in the Terraform CLI that is called by a step in your pipeline. That then has a registration of, in our case, the Jamf Pro Terraform provider that then can talk with our SDK to the APIs in Jamf Pro, and it can then start manipulating and lifecycle managing resources in whatever tenant you point it at.
Right. Sounds good, right? Sounds good. I think I know what's coming. A live demo. Ooh, live. How are we with the world of Git? Good, bad, know what it is, genius, yeah. It's sometimes, sorry? No, the reason I ask is because sometimes you don't feel like you're talking too simple, and sometimes you just completely blow people away. And I don't want to, so I'll try and go down the middle. If something makes absolutely no sense, grab me after, I'll explain it in explicit detail. And if I'm talking too simple, then tough. So
I'll stop sharing.
Yep, you do need to do that, and I'm gonna stand over there so I can have some angle. So all well and good. What does it look like? Because graphs and all that are easy, but actually making it work, different thing, right? So my well-prepared demo here is going to show you, and if it goes wrong, I'm not accountable, even though I built it. Put that over there. So in this example, we've got 3 instances of Jamf Pro. This is a GitHub repo for a start. That's no good, is it? So we've got 3 instances of Jamf Pro, and I can't see behind the bloody Zoom. And they're all the same version for now. And one of our engineers wants to make a change in our production environment, but has to adhere to our stringent internal requirements for processing change for a route to live. How do we do that with Terraform and all the stuff we've just spoken about? I'm going to show you. We have our GitHub repository here, which is where our Terraform code is stored. We have that represented locally, exactly the same repo in wonderful cursor here. And we have inside our folder some configuration. And that looks a little bit like what we're all used to in terms of Jamfy things. So we have buildings and we have some categories and some doc items. And you can all see these sort of match the field names you're used to in the UI. Looks a bit different, but this all looks fairly familiar, right? And because this exists here, this actually already exists in our Jamf Pro, which is logged out. So we'll log back in. And we'll just do a little, just so you know I'm not lying. Well, we have lots of test categories. Should we try something else? Let's try buildings. That's better. So we have some buildings. They match these here. And you'll see it prefixes. Don't worry about the exact syntax for now, but you can see that it has that prefix and we've got some buildings. Very good. And our other two instances, which I won't log in and show you, match. How do we add to it? So we're going to go into our Terraform code here, and conveniently someone has commented out some things that we want. So we're just going to comment them back. No, we're not going to comment back in. We're going to make a branch first. We're going to make a branch first. And in this branch, so we split off from the main code and we're now making a change. We're going to uncomment these conveniently commented out things. So we just added a building. We're going to add the old aerospace category. We're going to add a script here that does some stuff again. Should be able to spot the similarities. And then we're going to add our policy, which is a bit of a beast. And in this policy, you can see I'm referencing that it's attached to that aerospace category that I uncommented. It's attached to the scope of the... What have I done?
You've got a software update now.
Where? Why is that not on there?
Is it the host computer?
Is it you?
It's me.
Take that back. Take that back. Yeah,
Why I stuck around.
I'm well up to date.
Why they pay me big bucks.
I want to hear no slander to my software versions. Anyway, sorry. In the scope here, you can see we've got that Jamf London building that I've attached. And down here, we've got that script, which I've done. So we can see we've got some changes here. We're going to commit those changes, which means save them to our, we actually want them to persist. And I have a shortcut for that. But we're just going to use that. Some changes. Very good. And we're going to push those changes. No, we're not. We're not going to push the changes. So we've saved those changes. We're happy with them. We need to test them in our sandbox environment. Now, before we get involved in all the GitOps and the internet, we can actually talk to the Terraform attached to our sandbox environment from my terminal. And how we do that is because in between the GitOps and the GitHub repo and our instance, we have these, can this thing get out of the way? These Terraform workspaces. Now, this is an intermediary, said wrong, between the configuration and our instance. And this is holding our Jamf Pro credentials. And this is actually where those runners are going to be on this occasion that actually apply our change. So just going to go into the terminal and we're just going to say Terraform, apply. And what this should do, if we're in the right place, is pick up on the changes that I've added and tell them it's going to make them. Now, there is there's a small piece of code inside that Terraform that says, please use the sandbox environment, which, perfect, very good. I've done something wrong. But there is a small piece of code in this environment that says, please use the sandbox one. And this repo is completely public and you can go and tear it to pieces in your own time. What we're missing is that. Live demo.
There's a string on it.
We're going to see. It worked earlier.
Undo something.
It's all right. I'll just set it back to -1 if it doesn't work. Whee! Look at that.
There we go.
So green means new. If we were changing things, it would go yellow. If we were deleting things, it would go red. And we can see here that we've got that new building, we've got the new category, and we've got our policy that should reference these. It says known after apply because we declared them at the same time. And Terraform's asking, would you like to do that? Yes. Now it's going to start up another run, and it should go apply those things. Conscious of time. Whose internet's this? Oh, rubbish. Come on. Any time today, please. Would like to add this is an internet problem. This is not me. So there we go. Good. 4 added. So if we go back to our instance and takes a few attempts to refresh, but voila. Jamf London's in here. And our policy, is that what I called it? Yeah, London Mac admins, yep, is in here. Internet. Let's not do that. We've got our aerospace, we've got the script we spoke about, and we've got the name, we've got this, right? Happy days, good. How do we get that into production? Go back here, made that branch, stick that in the remote. Make the branch in the remote first. Stand by. Stick that in the remote. And what that means is, you see our GitHub repo has picked up on that I've pushed some changes to the branch. We can look in there and you'll see, comment out, comment out, comment out. So at this point, a manager can go and review this and say, oh, you're making some changes, I'd like to review them. We're just going to push them because there's no manager here.
Just before you do go on from here, the opportunity this provides is that now for every change you are forcing peer review of everything that's going to hit your environment. So whether that's peer review, like someone the manager, or it's just engineer to engineer, what it means, and we know this is a limitation of Jamf, is that how do you four eyes check and stop someone from making a change on your tenant if you're working together on it? It's quite difficult. So this process called the PR process, pull request process, allows for that peer review, and you can leave comments, and you can, if you're familiar with this, you already know, you can define your approval flow based on your internal requirements. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Well, better still. So I've made that pull request, which is for the non-Gitty people, a request to pull my changes into the main branch. And that's automatically triggered a couple of workflows that have failed. That's really not good because I've not planned for this. So what it's actually gone and done is broken. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what it should have done is it's picked up on the PR. It's checked the branch name. So I used feat for feature as in new thing / the brief description of it. And it said, yes, that branch name is valid, because when you have lots of branches, having good names is important for, know what your colleagues are doing. And if someone just calls their branch cheese, no one's going to know what's going on. So it's checked that. And what it should have done is upload the configuration and plan it, but it hasn't. And I have a hunch. I do have a hunch. Let's see if that works. So because I pushed a new change, it's going to recheck for us, and hopefully that's the problem. But what I'll say should happen, just as for the sake of time, it doesn't work. It's going to plan against our staged instance, which is in the middle here, where the changes have not hit yet. And it's going to plan to make sure those changes we proposed are compatible with that instance. So to make sure there's not already something in there that's got a duplicate name, or that it's any one of a number of issues. And what it should do, if it works, is it will append the plan results to this PR, so that the manager reviewing it can actually see, well, that's already compatible with our staging instance. I don't need to check. I don't need to be finicky. The change proposed is valid. And then once this PR in a production sense would not be mergeable. You could not bring it into main unless these checks pass. So if the change was invalid and it's worked, so that should pop up in a second. There's no worries about bringing an instance down. I'll let this finish and it should stick some change on there. How am I for time? Shall I shut up soon? Huh? You good? Yeah, okay. Sorry, no, because we've got a few more steps. I don't want to eat in someone else's time. So, very good. We've got that add 4 here. We can click to view the run. Won't do that. And so this has gone green, which means this is valid. So we're going to merge that into main. And what that means is our staging environment, which in this scenario is a dead copy of production, will now get these changes. And that keeps staging nice and fresh. It means it matches production, and it means that nothing bad or no one's debug stuff's going to make it in there. And staging becomes a one-to-one copy of production. And it means that all the changes that do eventually hit production are going to be good. So you see it's applying that. And again, we're skipping over a few steps, but be all right. Go into staging. When this finishes, we should be able to view our changes. I really wish that would go away. Please. Please go away. Oh, yeah, now you go away. Still thinking. This can take a minute, but it is internet dependent. It is how heavy your change is dependent, but it never takes more than a couple of minutes. We should, in a minute, see it pop up here. So you see different instance, we're in staging now. We've got that same policies arrived, and it will have the same attributes. I've removed the category. That was the issue, by the way. So the category is gone, but the script is still here. And the scope of being that building is still there. Great, cool. So let's say that's been happening all week. Our engineers have been submitting changes. They've been hitting our staging environment. And maybe once a week on a Friday, we want to push to production and we want to update the instance of Jamf Pro that our users are actually on. It's not our judgment. All right. So how do we do that? So we have a nifty little thing in our repo called Release Please by Google that's been keeping track of our changes. You can see here that one change has appeared. When we're ready to push this change, so at this point you might have more approvals or a webhook or something, you name it, any integration you like that's got an API. We merge this. And our repo, which this whole time has been locked to a tag, so we can say this is our latest known good, should get bumped to the next version, and all those lovely changes we've got should get pushed into the next version. So we can say we're now on our internal configuration version, currently 3.14.5 pi, unexpectedly, nearly, and should up to 3.15. Good. How does that get to our production instance? We should have an action waiting for us. So as a last line of defense, this action, which will put those changes into production, requests an approval off of someone, me in this case. And we approve that. And then look at this for a live demo. It's all going well. We have more actions running. So you can see now this time it's taken the tagged code. And eventually it'll run. And you know what's going to happen is in a minute when I refresh this, our change would have arrived. And that's it, really. We've pushed some change from an idea in a terminal through a like-for-like staging environment into production. It's been versioned. It's been approved at every stage. There's visibility. And because the repo is versioned, if this change is rubbish or it doesn't suit our users' requirements, we simply roll back to the tag before and repeat the process. Anything to add?
Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. Just as proof, we're in production. We have our policy. It's arrived with its associated connections. Uh, live demo.
Thank you very much.
I will take questions.
So take it like in one given scenario, you can spin up a new sandbox and bam, you can apply 90% plus of all the configurations of that.
Theoretically.
Yeah. Okay. That's a really good scenario.
So what we've done there is taken one piece of code and pointed it at 3 different instances. If you wanted to take that code and point it at a new one every time, you could. And if you wanted to take the entire production code as it exists and point it backwards at a testing environment, you also could.
One of the things about Terraform is that it is declarative. Mike? Oh, right. One of the things about Terraform is that when you run those Terraform effectively resource templates, they are declarative. So and therefore deterministic. So as many times as you run that template, the outcome will always be the same. So whether you shoot it at 1, 10, or 100, it will always reach the same outcome. The way we've also built the provider is from a drift detection perspective, is that if you were to say deploy resource number 1, maybe a script, someone in the GUI was then to go and update the script, but that's not what the script is defined as in your code base in the repo. Then next time you run Terraform, it will notice that the tenant doesn't match the code. Your bash script or whatever, and it will true up the tenant. So the tenant then becomes, again, if it drifts away, will then be brought back into alignment with what your code says it should be. Yeah, go for it.
So just on that point, obviously, if somebody does go in and change a script, they could do a lot of damage before Terraform reverts it. Do you have permissions locked down then on your GUI?
Really good point.
People.
We believe that if you're running in this kind of workflow, then all your admins should have read only with break glass accounts by exception, based on specific scenarios. So to help mitigate some of those potential challenges and risks. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Have you found anything that you can't manage in Jamf through Terraform? Are you still doing anything manually, or?
I feel like I should let Neil answer this.
How complete is the journey?
Do you want to answer that as a tandem?
Yeah, go first.
So in terms of total amount of resources covered now, I think we've hit about 60, which represents over 90% of everything you'd want to manage is manageable. The delta lies in some of the API endpoints that maybe aren't documented or made public. So there's a few limitations there. We've got app installers working, but there's some permissioning challenges because of how things are with Jamf at the minute. And there's a couple of other things. There's a couple, probably about 4 or 5 endpoints that we found that we can't reach and can't get to. We've made numerous and we'll continue to make requests into Jamf to say make these public and give us a full CRUD for them, and then because then we can bring them into this fully. One example where we have to fudge it is icons, because you can get it in, you can't do much more after that. So in other words, we will do as much as the APIs allow us, but we're limited by what's made available to us.
Yeah. Would you be so kind to put up the provider documentation page on the registry? Because that's got a nice list of all the different endpoints that you can manage. So I always like to show you what you can do rather than lament over what you can't. The registry, please. That's quite nice. It's all searchable as well, which is really cool. So in the Terraform registry, if you just you can search for the word Jamf Pro, and you'll see the provider. You might also see other people's providers that are a little bit abandoned now as well. So it's the deployment theory is the one you want. And then, under documentation, you can see you've now got resources and data sources on the left. Resources are the things you're probably most interested in, because those are the things you can create or update and delete. And there are a lot of them. So pretty much at the moment, the resources that you can't manage are those that maybe don't have API endpoints yet. So APNS certificate renewal, that kind of thing. There's a few pages in the settings as well that, again, our team in MSP services, we're trying to lobby for. When you go into the iOS management and the app updates and app maintenance, there's no API endpoint for those. And if you've ever created a configuration profile to manage file vault key escrow, it attaches a certificate to that profile when you save it on creation. You can't do that in the API either. So you can create the escrow payload, but you have to go into the GUI and resave the profile to generate that certificate. So yeah, there's a few little bits and pieces. But there's a lot in the provider now. And we've been starting to work closely with Joe and Dafid as well to contribute to that as well. So we've got some new endpoints we can deal with now. So pre-stages and things like that, new ones, mobile device apps, Mac apps, and got some pull requests in for some of the new stuff. Thinking off the top of my head, self-service plus that tick box to deploy it. It was a pull request in for that as well. So yeah, please approve.
It's just worth mentioning on that point as well that even resources, you see some of the things there that are not flat out things that you can delete. Terraform generally likes things that can be create, read, update, or deleted. But there are even settings in there that you can manage, and if you remove them from your code, will just stop being managed, which is admittedly kind of against the theory of Terraform, but works rather well. I give both of these gentlemen credit for putting that in. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening. Hello. Everybody right? Hello. Quick couple of things. So this is like the second time Aaron's met me. The first time he met me was trying to tell me that the Apple Pen that I ordered through Jamf was for the wrong iPad. So that was interesting. And I was going, oh, thanks. Like, I felt completely like schooled on that. That was funny. Next time we met was at a Pantera concert.
It was, yeah.
So, this is
leaving Jamf. Yeah, now I'm back.
just cut that bit.
Yeah.
Like, say sorry, James. I know it's the wrong thing. But yeah. And then also it's about the whole Git thing as well. Well, when I was at Grey, we were Grey IT Services, so we were Gits, and we were Group IT, weren't we? Dafid towards the end. Yeah. Group IT, so we were Gits as well, weren't we? So it becomes a fun thing, and then Git blame becomes a fun thing, and it just carries on and carries on and goes on. Talking about Git blame, I can thank Neil for this presentation title. He said, what do you record it? I said, I'll just call it some HomeKit thing or something. So turning not HomeKit stuff into kind of HomeKit stuff with Homebridge that's it. It was a song, it does. So we've got a few different things we're going to go through, essentially why, what, how, and tips and tricks. So let's look at the why. So, many years ago, those of us that remember the old original Apple TVs, and you could then go and you could jailbreak them. And the jailbreak meant that you could take from what the apps were installed to other apps. I mean, this is so old, it's got like a glass UI, which is a horrible thing, right? You've got to walk away from it. Yeah. And everyone remembers XBMC and then Plex and stuff as well. So we set all this up at home, and essentially it got to the point where my wife made a rule. And she said, if I can't use it, we're not having it in the house. So, and it's quite a fair rule because she's not a Luddite, but she just wants to be able to use something and not have to worry about being in IT and the rest of it. And I think that's fair. So this is like a number of years ago. So at home, our old home, we set it on, Apple Home, nice UI, nice and simple, couple of Nanoleaf things, whatever. It wasn't much that we had before. We had some stuff from Meros, which is like a cheap company. There's nice plugs. Nanoleaf that I mentioned do some really nice lights. Wemo, which, funny enough, while we were sitting here, I got an email from Belkin. They've discontinued it as of January 31st next year, literally while I've been sitting here, so that's fun. And Tardo, which is kind of like a precursor to Nest as well. They've been out for a long time, but that type of smart heating thing. Fast forward to the last meetup we had. There's James Turner on his bike, as he normally does. And he was talking about this and about the automation they did at Iwaka. I always tell the name wrong. It's one of those two, maybe, in the middle. And they were talking about using like more Home Assistant or Home Assistant. I can't remember the right name, but this was also the day before we got keys to a new house. So it was very exciting, new house, which turned out to be the week before Black Friday. So I was thinking of the home grid stuff and the rest of it, and that's why we kind of stayed with it, with what my wife said about all that. So what were we using? What were we doing? So we had this initial collection of stuff from one house to the other, and Black Friday, new house, all that excitement, expanded it a little bit. So there are different brands here. This is the majority of the brands. I think we ended up going with the things in the end, but literally I was like, oh, hey, that can use this potentially a Homebridge plugin, which we'll talk about later. And so I just grabbed the thing and just ordered things and tried to make it work. Now, so of the things that we had, these ones would actually already work with Apple Home anyway, so there's no additional config needed for them or anything. And also they work with Matter. Now, if you don't know what Matter is like an open standard for these things. So there's a nice FAQ on their website, which is matter-smarthome.de, and it's telling you that it's an independent connectivity standard. If you know the XKCD situation, there are 14 competing standards, 14 ridiculous. We need to develop one universal standard that covers every use case. Yeah, situation are now 15 standards. But lucky enough, Matter has actually kind of caught on. So Matter is a thing that's becoming more and more regularly available. If you look at who supports Matter, you've got Amazon, you've got Apple, you've got Google, you've got folks who looked after the Zigbee stuff, and lots of other protocols are involved. So Matter has got some big industry backing, and it is a thing that's generally available now for devices. Do you need new equipment? So some equipment's had updates and things as well, which will work with it. Others, you might need some hubs or something to make them communicate with the cloud in your home environment. But really, Matter has become like a good standard that you should essentially buy anything that's got Matter if you're looking to do something like this. And again, this is where it talks about the different requirements you might need. So if you've got an Apple TV, 4K, or HomePods, even the original old school HomePod will actually work as a hub for Matter as well as other things as well. So you might already have hubs and Matter controllers, they call them, already in your house. So you might be able to use it straight away. My parents grabbed some land leaves off me the other day and completely forgot they haven't got any of this. So they kind of didn't work in the way they needed them to work in the end. So just a little bearing in mind that, basically. So we'll forget all those ones. But what do we do about the rest of the devices, basically? And we had some more in here. So we've got Tizen on there on the left, which is an OS that Samsung use on their TVs and stuff. I think it started with WebOS and went to Tizen. Not 100% sure, but yeah. And Unify, because I finally upgraded my home network from Airport Extremes to an actual proper network. I felt 2024, you know, it was a good time to move, maybe. So yes. So how did all this work and how could I put this together? I kind of buried the lead a little bit, but essentially using Homebridge. So Homebridge is a open source plugin, which it's got some nice things actually on the website. It says HomeKit support for the impatient, and that kind of stings with me a little bit. And on the left-hand side, it talks about some of the popular repos and plugins they've got, Ring, Wemo. So already some of those things on that slide that I had earlier. On their Git page, it has a bit more terminology that I think we're a bit more comfortable with. Homebridge is a lightweight Node.js server you can run on your home network that emulates iOS HomeKit API. So it has plugins which are community contributed modules that provide a basic bridge for your HomeKit to use various third-party APIs. So in a way, it kind of feels a bit like AutoPKG with the way the community stuff is, but essentially you run this on a server at home, or you run this on a host at home, and then you can then connect to those other devices via that API as like a bridge type thing. Nice thing is, it's got various different installers. So you can have Raspberry Pi, Linux, Mac OS, Windows, etc. You know, you've got those different options you've got available there. I grabbed myself a Mac Mini, use it as a caching server, and then I've got this on there as well. So, you know, here's the login page. Very exciting, isn't it? You log in, credentials, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what the product does and things it has. So, yeah, here was my home earlier. Now, I did change the QR code, so it shouldn't work. Because you're also not physically in my house, which would be really weird if you did. So I should be okay, but I did have to think about some of this because I don't. Some of you like, I don't think you're particularly evil. I just think you may be curious how far you could push it. So, so you can see it's quite a generic interface, something you're probably going to feel quite comfortable with already. Nice red stuff on logs, makes you obviously worry about it. Amber, things we need to upgrade or change or whatever. But yeah, so within here, the main thing you do is you add these things called plugins, like I kind of said earlier. Plugins can come in a variety of different ways. They can be either from the vendors themselves or from the community. So we look at these plugins here that I've currently got running in our environment. Our environment, my house. Sorry, it's such an IT way of describing your home. Yeah, prod, yeah. It's a bit more staged than my wife would like. Actually, I don't really know what that means. Let's just move on. So these are the icons from earlier. We take away the ones that were HomeKit and were Apple Home compatible anyway. That leaves us with these. And then we try and match all these up. So you see that basically the majority of the things that I said we had apps for and that have basically managed to match already within there. What we now have at the top here, we have a thing called Smart Life, which is basically the Tuya one, which is this one here. It's like rebranded. It's called white label, whatever you call it. But it's the same API. So you can either have multiple plugins, but I decided to stick with the Tuya plugin versus the other one. They all work differently, so it's kind of personal choice. And Smart Things is at the bottom. And with Smart Things, I decided to go with Tizen for a plugin rather than the Smart Things one. The Smart Thing one's great. It can do everything. You could say, hey, Siri, turn on this TV to that channel, whatever. I literally just want to know if they're on or off. There's reasons why. But essentially, you can see how the plugins kind of work there and what I've browsed and what I've got in the environment. I've done it again. So when you look at a plugin, you click on the release here, it will take you to the releases page in Git. So very similar to what's right about with the releases as well. So auto commented, all your usual stuff that you're kind of used to. So you can make sure you don't click a button before a thing. It doesn't upgrade the thing necessarily if you feel like you don't need to, but also if it's a security vuln, you maybe want to know what's going on. We're all a bit curious, aren't we, for IT folks? We want to make sure that, we don't want to know what's going on, basically. So, and then click on here, you've got the, people call it ellipsis, people call it a burger, whatever you call these three things. You've got various options here. So you can go into the config of the plugin itself to get up and running. Logs for the individual one, where on the first page was everything logging. You can roll back the versions of the plugin as well if you need to. So if certain thing is an issue, you can roll it back as well. You've got a config, all the config is to JSON. So you can have a look at that and edit it that way if you'd like. Disable the plugin, which means that that communication will no longer work with those devices. Uninstall to remove it. And then we talk about the bridges, the child bridges and things like that. So the way that this kind of works and the way that this works for me best as well, each one of these plugins is a bridge. You add a bridge to Apple Home, and then when you add devices through Homebridge or through the API of the system, it will automatically appear in your Apple Home. It's like a default location as well. So say we've got a garage, I think is our default. So if I add a new plugin for a new thing that I've already got up and running, like Govee, say I did a new Govee install, put the plugin in, the device would just appear in my garage, then I can move them out within Apple Home and make them work as I need. If you've done some stuff like I said, Tardo earlier and other things, you've had physical bridges as well. So that's essentially the same sort of thing. Like Tardo and like an internet bridge, dongle, and a few other things have got dongles and things like that as well. So kind of thing that this is a way that devices that are in this family can then be surfaced into your Apple Home environment. Searching for things, it's pretty simple. There's a search box. Shock. On the Homebridge homepage is also a search as well you can do there. Now, the thing to bear in mind there seems to have been a lot of folks that got really excited about this project when it first came out and put some stuff out from a boilerplate kind of repo, then they haven't developed it. So you kind of got to pick your poison and choose your way through. I mean, not really much different to also Big AG. You try and find a recipe for one thing. Obviously, when you don't go for the data jar recipes, obviously you go somewhere else. But first call is ours, right? Anyway. But you will go through these. You've got to look for the rebies and see what they're going to do. You could have people doing multiple things, many things differently than what you want to achieve. So on here, for example, Wiz, SIM controllers, 3 for the LAN, 1 for the net. I don't even know what they do. I didn't go into them, but this one has been updated since 2021, 2022, 2023, etc. as an example. So there's a plethora of options out there most of the time. We just got to have a look to see which ones actually are going to be more applicable to what you're trying to achieve. When the plugin's installed, you want to go and look at the config. It really depends now on what the endpoint is that you're going to be connecting to. I've chosen a couple of these to show because the others, the problem is it shows everything in plain text. So if I show the others, you get my API keys, you get all these credentials. So to show you some of the simpler ones, but when it comes to this one here for Wiz, for example, Wiz do a lot of lights and a lot of those cheap things. I had some bulbs delivered earlier that are Wiz, like little bulbs for the garden lights. It will just look on your local network. So it's a bridge that's scanning your local network or advertising itself to the devices. The devices can communicate through it, and then this surfaces into your Apple Home. This is a very simple one step, literally set it up, told it how long to ping to refresh, and that was it. It was away. And again, depending on the plugin, the author depends on what options you have. So here's Ring. There's a huge token they have to put in, like a 64 character token you've got to redo every now and then. But the main thing to show you is the plugin config. Every single option in here has got different options, different text, and they're telling you what it's doing. So that's down to the author. Generally, obviously, if it was from the company direct, the vendor's direct, we should have more information, but it's a bit by luck, really. There are 3 pages on just the Ring stuff alone, and giving you all the different paragraphs and what this thing does, what it does. So normally quite a lot of scope. So when you get this done and you start installing plugins and things, accessories will just start to appear. Though within Homebridge, you can tidy this up, you can put in different sections and things if you need it, but remember on your Apple Home, they just appear as like the generic name, not even these nice names here. So you can have a huge swathe of these just appear. And so if you want to be funny about it or want to be pernickety, you can worry about this, but then you might accidentally do a thing which then gets rid of the order. Then you're really sad. You spent 2 hours on a Sunday rejigging stuff. So don't be like me. Just leave it as it is. But there's an example. Yeah. So, well, but on here as well, this does give you an idea of what the state of the device is. If there's ever a issue with communication, like Apple Home isn't showing it, you can check here as a source, as well as the vendor apps themselves. Logging, we all love logging. So it gives you a nice login. This is the aggregated logging across the whole of Homebridge. So the Homebridge system itself, as well as your plugins. So here it can't find certain bulbs because the red, so because they're offline at the moment, or well, they're offline because of a pool. But or on here they've got a temperature sensor, office humidity and temperature sensor. I've given things really lovely names. Yeah, it's in my office, so yeah. But it tells you here that it's changed, and it's changed. Well, I don't know. Apparently it's changed something, but it doesn't show on the screen, but it's changed like a small percentage. But this is just gives you an idea again of what the thing's doing. This is, you'd only ever really be in there when you're troubleshooting. You just let it run otherwise, yeah. And here's the JSON config. Again, this is for the whole instance now, but you can have it per system. So you can put this in your Subversion, in your Gits, your Bitbuckets, wherever you want. I mean, nothing says IT right than using Subversion to manage your light config at home. It's it's there. So yeah, Terraform, right? He's on it. So, wow, okay. So let's start with tips and tricks. So basically, I've shown you the fact that we can use Homebridge, install it in your network, add plugins to make devices that wouldn't normally be in Apple Home surface to Apple Home. So the exciting bit is actually the bit that we kind of skipped because you just see them appear. Great, we've got this device now there. But really, there's a few things you need to look at as well, and a few issues and a few things I would kind of let you know to follow. So I kind of came up with this section before the rest, but this is like the issues and the stuff that's frustrating me and really annoyed me as well. So if you've ever been to anything about any of these types of things, the first thing anyone's going to tell you to do, and they rightly tell you to do, is use a 2.4 gigahertz only wireless network. Right? This went to a grown-up wireless provider with one SSID, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, and it's no end of problems. No end of problems. So I went just to a 2.4 on its own and a 5 separate, and it's been so much more stable. So even though it's a proper SSID, it shows it properly, the device had issues. And also your speed is much greatly increased because if you're using the 2.4 and 5 on one network, all your devices will slow down by a factor. It's not, so essentially if you want the best network, 5 gigahertz for us, it's our iPhones, our friends' devices, our media rich things, TVs, HomePods, those things. All the lights, everything else, 2.4 gigahertz. And it's been so much happier since. Though it's one of those things to plan in advance. If you're going to do this, get that set up. And going back to the hardware requirements about Matter controllers and things, depending on your ecosystem, depending on what you want to work with, you might have a load of devices that work with a smart life. So you might need a actual on there something physical to work with that, or maybe it's just Matter and you're buying things and need a controller as well. It's worth seeing what you've got at home just to see what you need to buy because you don't want to get the stuff. Or like I did, my parents gave them stuff and then they couldn't use it because they had no Matter controller on site. They got one old Amazon Echo thing. No HomePod, no Nest stuff, nothing. So yeah, it didn't work. But I expect in this room we've probably got one or more of the above type things, And if you want to use your Apple Home stuff outside of the house, this is where HomePods come in. But again, I think we've all probably got a HomePod, or I guess the majority might do, but this is the idea is to, you have a home pod, well, there's Apple TV as well, that will be on your network that can act as this hub. So this basically allows communication outside of your home.
Some iPads as well.
Yeah, I thought that, but then I read this and just left it at that. No. So let's see if this works. It's not working. Oh, just got to read that. Essentially, it's trying to show you what Thread is and what Thread's about. This is another important thing to look at with these devices. So in a short video, but Thread is basically a device-to-device mesh network. So Thread's another important standard, and this is what comes out. Nanoleaf devices have all got Thread built into them and stuff as well. So this is where maybe your home network or maybe your home connectivity needs to be looked at as well on this. If you don't have internet at the end of your garden where you want a light to be, if you've got devices that can sit in the middle and communicate through, great. If you've got an office at the end of the garden and there's a big gulf for the wireless in the middle, you might have a problem even with Thread. So there's some stuff you can do. Obviously, buy more. Anyone who's got Apple stock will be like, buy more HomePods or whatever. Some of these can also be quite cheap as well. I've got this Aquara hub for like £18, and I plugged it into a USB slot in my office, and it just does everything. I mean, Zigbee, Matter, Thread, HomeKit. It just 18 quid, plugged it in. It's a very exciting setup. I mean, you've got an app here that tells you the device is on, gives you different details about Zigbee, which is another protocol, Bluetooth, MAC address. You'll do Bluetooth connections to some devices, as well as the Thread network, the details of that and which ones it's offering. But for 18 quid, plugged it in, it's done. So it's worth looking at again. So is your network up to scratch? A Thread device is applicable? What about where the stuff's actually going to be physically placed? Maybe you need to augment it with a hub thing or a Thread border router, I think they call it, like this. Or maybe you need, even to start from the beginning, maybe you need a Mac controller, maybe you need a HomePod, maybe. So some of this you can kind of do in advance before you buy anyway. But once you've got it in place, and again, a 2.4 gigahertz network is generally pretty good and pretty stable. When you finally get it all going, this is where everybody gets to do all their fun automations. And this is kind of like the gateway automation, which is, I know it's got weird connotations, but everybody generally is like a porch light or a light that comes on just before sunset and it goes off just before sunrise, just off sunrise. You know, that's like the basic, you know, the gateway drug type thing that gets you into the harder drugs. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Bonnie, this is a Mac Mule talk, not a Jamf talk. I think I should probably just state that. Just in case. And you know, this is where like you start to kind of beef things up and get a bit daft with it. So we've got a thing set with when the home alarm is set, the Ring alarm. You've got like different modes. You've got one to disarm it. You've got one that says that you're home, but they arm the alarm. So that's your one at night. The motion sensors are working, all that. And then you've got one when you're away as well. So the home alarm, when we arm that, it turns off the lights in the garden, turns off the appliances, it turns off TVs, it changes underfloor heating, it puts on the security lights. And this all came about because one hungover morning where Catherine was asking me why I left some lights on. So this made it easy for me just to the lights stumble upstairs and it works. It's great. It turns it all off. But it's nice to give you peace of mind. And these are the types of things that are quite nice automations that you can do. And it's just like a nice, it's like a very small quality of life bump, you know, like kind of like, cool, I could do this, everything's turned off, I know. Or we've got ones where you open your utility room door and the light goes on. We've got similar ones with the garage door as well. So this is where you end up hitting a problem. Most of the stuff within Apple Home is a very simple, if this, then that. So, okay, great. Open the utility room door, or so better analogy is well, actually on screen. Open the garage room door, the light turns on, right? You've got the external garage door, you've got the internal garage door, but garage, who uses a garage to put cars anymore? You know, it's got a pool table in it, it's got a dartboard. So when the family want to do that and play around that, what happens? Well, they shut the door, the lights go out. Apple Home doesn't really help because it just gives you this. If this, then do that. But in here, which I've helpfully used dark mode to show you the text black on grey, but it says here that there's a custom condition only if garage door is closed. So this is an option that you don't normally have surfaced in the Apple Home UI. And in here, it says here, there's a custom condition, tick. Well, the custom condition is this. We found a really cheap, cheesy light on Amazon. It's like 10 quid or something. This is on a smart plug. When that plugs on, the light comes on, the garage is now in game room mode. So now when you close the garage doors, the lights don't turn off. So as this, it turns on the heater, it turns on, there's a couple of monitors where the Mac actually runs, Homebridge is running. So the kids can then, AirPlay to it. So that's it. But you just kind of need to extend it a little bit. Like I say, this isn't really available through Apple Home directly, or not through the app directly. There's 2 apps that can help you with this. So we've got one called Eve. Eve's great on here, but Eve's the wording and sometimes the UI is a bit interesting. It's a free app. But on here, essentially, we've taken this whole thing about the garage door is closed, and it basically says as long as the games room light is off as well. So if the garage door closes and the games room light isn't running, then it will turn the lights off. There's another app that does this similarly as well. £6, £7, worth buying. Different UI, similar thing. So garage door contact sensor state is contact detected. So this is a Ring contact sensor. So the garage door closes. In a garage door, contact sensor is detected as well. So if both doors are closed, and if the games room light is off. So that's kind of how you build up these custom things. So it's not just if this then that, it's if this with multiple conditions. You know, you build out multiple if statements, right, into a thing. But Apple Home, for the GUI itself, the UI itself, doesn't really give you these options. But all these are doing, this is the Home Plus app or the Eve app, they're actually tapping into the APIs within Apple Home already. So it's there, it's just not surfaced. That's right. You want to get cream for that. Sorry. So the other thing as well to show on this, these are all the apps and stuff we talked about earlier and other things that we've got, as well as the new apps for doing the automations. When you move everything to Homebridge, you actually you're still going to need the apps, basically, regardless. If you want to do things like firmware patching and updating things, or maybe the plugin, say the plugin for the Nanoleaf lights. I've got those Nanoleaf lights that go around the back of the TV. So they call it a 4D mode. But the idea is try and turn our living room to a bit like a cinema, you know. The explosion here, it goes yellow up here on the screen and everything as well. With Nanoleaf directly, I can turn it off and on basically through all this stuff. So the Samsung TV turns on, which is via the Tizen plugin. And then when that turns on, via Homebridge, we turn on the Nanoleaf. But if I don't want to change modes, if I want to kind of change the other things a bit more advanced, you jump back into the app. So generally the Homebridge stuff, you should be able to get there to at least the basic things. But some of the more complicated stuff, you might need to maybe look to move either using the vendor's app or there might be another plugin. I'd say there's a great plugin for Samsung TVs. You could do everything in it. It was like add a TV, but then you end up with 20 accessories because everything like an input device or a sound device was an additional accessory. So you turn on HDMI 2. It was like this whole mess from like one TV. So, and obviously the main thing is, you know, security patching, stuff like that. You know, all these things got firmware. Everybody loves doing firmware on their living room lights, but it's the thing. If you've got this stuff, you got to be mindful of it. So on that, so you just a little bit early, finished. Thank you. Oh no.
Question, Mike. Thank you. Hopefully I've understood what you're talking about. So this question isn't stupid. What's your decision-making source of truth with this? Like, if you have your phone set up with some automations and your wife's phone is mother's, and they differ lightly, all
the automations and the scenes and stuff are all within Apple Home.
Okay.
So as soon as if you join the account, it's the same.
It's the same of it. So
yeah.
Does the Shortcuts app make you any happier with like those conditional problems you're having?
I've actually not used it at all yet.
There's a lot of stuff in there, and there's some apps that give you additional like tests you can make with it. The
main thing was trying to make sure. I mean, my wife and the kids have got access to Apple Home, but they've actually only got read only. It's like it's a Jamf Pro, I don't want to touch it. To bring back to the other thing, but it comes to the point about we wanted something that they could easily use. And if I got to the point I start throwing in shortcuts and other things, it now steps away from it for them. They can use Siri, they can say, turn these lights on, turn these lights off, and it distills down to that, or they know that at night time there'd be a utility room door, the light comes on. So we kind of kept it simple like that. But there is like when friends are coming around, I might want to click 5 buttons to do a thing. And I could probably do that more for myself, but not for the users.
I just asked because
family.
The users' family. I was just wondering because like you could, in my head, you could make your own plugin for your Homebridge thing and then run your own service decision making. But I'm
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
going flying here. I was just curious because I had this funny scenario in my head where you had two different shortcuts on two different phones and they conflicted, and your garage light was just flashing
No.
because one wanted it on and one wanted it
No,
off.
so the good thing is that at home is the main source of truth. You can invite people to your home, and then they have certain levels of access. So everybody, my family's in the home, and then they can like read only. Kids can't change stuff when they're not at home because there's no reason for them to, apart from for mischief. But there's things like, when they leave the house, their bedroom lights get turned off. Because as a parent, you normally moan over not turning off their bloody. Like, I looked at Mike there straight away. Mike was nodding. But the other thing is with this as well. This also helps with regards to costs. So when we got the house, it was cost us £20 a day to run because the boiler didn't work, and we had one one large room with underfloor heating. There are 2 bathrooms, but the main thing was going through that. And it's got £20 a day. With this, and we've got solar panels now, 160 quid a month to run the house. But
I live at home.
we only like
I don't know what that means.
well, it's less money.
I was just going away with all these crazy ideas. Do you have a question?
Do you have a do you run a help desk as well on that Mac Mini for your family?
No, but it's also in the opposite room from where the beer fridge is. So if there was a thing, I have done it a few times. Like, Dad, could you look at, give me a beer? So that's sometimes been a thing.
So is that how you get your tickets prioritized?
It depends on how hard Catherine hits me, really. To be honest. It's just like, "Get it done, this is it." No, it's been, they were a bit unsettled with it initially. And I was like, oh, this stuff's happening. And then they've started to get used to it. And like I say, you kind of do those like little helper things. TV on, light goes on. Living room lights on, like TV mode or whatever. You can do these things. The games room thing. As soon as that happened, the kids are like, oh, I get it now, because they know I can do this. Yeah, we've got a little room for a gym. Well, if you're in there, then when you turn the lights on, why would you have the heating on? It's a little room in the loft. So little things like that. So they've started to enjoy it a bit, although they are a bit like, Dad, have you got another thing?
And just sorry, one more question. So so on that point, there's obviously a period of time in the beginning to get it set up to your tastes and likes.
Yeah.
How much time do you think you would spend roughly a month to sort of maintain it? Because is it quite light after?
Yeah, quite light. The only bit that it was a side I was trying to get on the end, I forgot to. So thanks for this. The only thing I would say is you also need a way of recovering. So by this I mean if the Mac Mini that runs Homebridge for some reason unresponsive, then all that Homebridge automation stops. So what you then want is a plug that's on HomeKit that you can then turn it off, turn it back on again. So we also had
It's ILO, isn't it? Basically.
yeah. And we also had we had a new sofa delivered. You got those shelves that go behind your sofa. We got all those long shelf things. And I drilled holes in it to run the cable through and the rest of it. And the main HomePod Mini that is being used as the thread main controller, main router, just wouldn't communicate. So some of these random things that literally just make sure that was on a plug up or turn it off, turn it back on again. Because that should break last thing at the end. But then my redundancy on that is the fact that I've got an OG Apple HomePod and I've got a Mini, which are actually on separate ring mains as well. And then I've got the thing in the other room. You can get that, it is. So that was that's more the harder issues. And there was a power cut the other night, and I was at the Brighton Summer Party data jar. So that power cut out for 20 minutes. Then nothing. It didn't all come back up in the right order.
Yes.
Well, we have just had, not long ago, I had solar installed with batteries, and it's only £1,200 more, and then it will cut over to the battery. But yeah, and the other thing I said as well, sorry, the bit that I said that some of the stuff wasn't connecting and working, it's more of a different thing when you're at home, maybe more than in an office. But we sat at the pool in the garden. It's hot. We got this plastic pool thing. For years when I was at day job, I couldn't go away in summer. My wife works at a school, the kids were going to school, so we decided to enjoy ourselves with a pool thing. Come on, Terry, actually. It's a random colleague of ours. Yeah. And this pool is like 4 foot deep, 6.5 foot wide, 13 foot long. And it started off as a paddling pool, right? This is over the years, we've got this thing. So it's great. The kids are 13, 15, they're in it, their cousins are in it, they love it. Not really good for wireless. Because suddenly I've got this pool right in the middle of my garden and stuff's struggling to the APs. And we do have an AP the patio, and we had another one installed up in one corner because I can get some lights working. It's a thing. But essentially, it's nice. You put a pool in place. Now suddenly stuff stops working. Or I've had it at workplaces before. We set up some iPads for this video wall thing, and then at lunchtime they stopped working. They stopped connecting. Well, they're on 2.4 gig SSID, which is a similar frequency to what microwaves working. So at lunchtime, people are turning on the microwaves, and now that thing doesn't work. Which there's some of the fun things you've got to worry about as well. But that's more of the environmental stuff. And it's weird. I think they're actually happier with that. Now it's a physical thing then. So Dad, if I touch that thing and that thing, that's what they're going to get confused with. But they're now comfortable with it. I think the less I touch, I guess, the better. So, but it's taking some time. But the costs are there now. We are saving money. I mean, I'm never going to chart out how much it costs me, how much long it's going to take for me to save the money back what I've spent. That's kind of not the point. But no, it's become much more comfortable. Essentially, there's things like turning the alarm, make sure everything's off. The house that we bought had these ovens that are Wi-Fi enabled, so you can make sure they're turned off and things like that. Just nice little peace of mind.
Thank you.
Have you explored making non-smart things smart? And I can think of an example.
I bet my wife can think of an example as well. I love the idea of the switch bots. So switch bots is a little box and they've got a little handle on it. You press the button, they just do a thing. So yeah, I did think of something like that, but no, I kind of the looks I got when I was discussing it, I decided no, I'll just walk away. It's fine.
Just to take a different spin on that. So using the Akara power plugs, you can actually monitor the power consumption of them. So giving an example that I can think of is someone I know has applied that to a washing machine. So when the power consumption drops, they know that their wash has come to the end.
Yeah, no, we actually the only reason so the oven and hobs and that they work with Home Connect. The only reason we actually got it set up because they don't really make a good or loud noise when the timer goes. So just a simple silly thing that I get pinged. And even like tonight, I got pinged earlier on. So I normally message my wife saying, enjoy dinner. Just a little silly thing. But
Exactly.
There's a lot more scope to do a lot crazier stuff. But whereas we decided to funnel it through Apple Home, it limits you quite a bit, but actually it's often good enough. And it's often good enough at least to give you an overview, even if you can't go into the deep stuff. So, but I think my users, I said, I think they're okay with it now. So if I went too crazy, I'll be on my own.
Thank you.
One more. When are you going to make an MCP server and go full Iron Man? Flying suit. Hey, ChatGPT, please turn on the light.
To be honest, I probably need more of like a Zorb ball or something for me anyway, because I normally fall over. So I don't think me doing anything more like
I mean, in for a penny. Might as well finish it.
I think it's more like I was trying to figure out if I can get so the Prime deals are on this week. I did think, is there a way that you could get a home Hoover and have it deliver you beer?
I mean, you probably make that yourself with an Arduino and some motors and.
I couldn't do it.
If you're going to do that.
The kids are now 15 and 13.
Yeah, Hornby trains could do that.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that, you might as well build the flying suit.
Right. I think we're all with you on the logic there, aren't we? It's a logical step. I don't really know how to answer that. No.
Joe, no. I mean, half a joke question, but you actually could integrate ChatGPT and drive everybody mad with it, couldn't you?
Yeah. I'm sure you can do all sorts of things. I have drunkenly been at a conference in America and I pressed the button and then had to message my wife saying sorry because I've turned the TV off or the lights off or something. So I want to just kind of steer away from that a little bit. I think I just, I don't want to revolt my hands.
Fair enough.
I have one question. So, inspired by the granularity that you've got all what I counted 14 of your garden lights individually mapped.
51.
51. Sorry, 51.
I ordered 2 more.
Okay.
So it's 51. I replaced what was there. So there was spike lights in the garden, and,
Okay.
and there was those lights. They got like they got a light either end.
Yeah, I know the
The
ones.
wall lights though. So it's 53 now. Yeah.
So, to understand, this is running off the node server, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a way? Because I'm just thinking Christmas is not fast approaching, but it's closer than it was last year.
Do you want
You
us all
could,
to buy you?
well,
bulbs?
what you could have is if you could write a real fun little script, you could have a nice Christmas light display.
Yes. So this is the bit where I said like you need the apps themselves to do certain things. So the reason we had the Meros and stuff at the beginning with the plugs, where we'd say lights on, and it would turn the living room lights on or whatever. Now at Christmas, you plug in the Christmas tree, lights on, like tree panel. But if you can use the lights and you more the automation, when my friends come around, I put different scenes on, and different scenes would be different lights. So the lights that are normally like a nice warm white in the garden, are now red, blue, green, whatever. There's like a party mode you can do, and do things like that. No, you definitely can.
Is there maybe some sort of SDK you can use so that you could just write a script in something like a Python or maybe Go?
I've not seen one yet. I've had a couple of issues with some of the plugins, and I've put it on my back burner to try and help and try and fix them. They need TypeScript, I think, that most of them are in. So
possibilities are endless, really, if you can do that.
Yeah,
you can go absolutely
I
wild.
think you can do a lot more, or even just integrating with the HomeKit API itself, and rather than going via Homebridge. But it's on my back burner of stuff to do. You know, it's a community thing. There's been an update to the Ties and Samsung TVs that sometimes means they're on, they show us on by the API, but they're not, which then turns the lights on.
Yeah.
So like, but the people with the plugins, they're like, oh, sorry, I did the plugin 5 years ago. I no longer have Samsung TV. As sometimes happens, you know. So you want to be nice to community help, which I've got around to. But I'm sure there's much more I could do further into it. And then, like I say, like, if you want to go, well, I think it's like the semi-pro way of doing things. I think Home Assistant is probably more the pro things. It's got a lot more availability. But if you folks have used it, it's a lot more scalability in Home Assistant to do with that. Yeah, nodding. So I think this is like what I say. This is your semi-pro entry into it, but the Home Assistant stuff is probably your more in depth with more crazy workflows.
So if you're married, you'll have children. Home system.
Yeah, I've kind of done the same thing as Ben. I solely did it to give one interface to my partner for the 20 different apps that do other things. That is it. It's just to give her remote control to everything in one view without having 20 different logins that all time out at different times and everything else. Because I think from the actual server itself, there isn't any automation function. It's purely leveraging it into Apple Home. I don't think there's no.
Well, you can drive. I'm presuming there's a way you can drive it more. I just never looked into it, but
yeah. But I found it really stable. Anyone that wants to try it, like my official Apple Home stuff dies more often than the stuff going through this.
I was saying the HomePod the other day, the HomePod Mini, which was the main thread router for all of our thread devices, stopped working for some reason. And like, do you pull out the sofa and do all that crap, or just flick a switch and it works? But yeah, weird and wonderful things happen. But also, this has settled a few arguments because randomly, our HomePods have started to play at certain times, and generally it's my music, which not most of my family like. So you're waking up to metalcore at 4 o'clock in the morning or things like that. And we've been able to like realize that little logs and stuff go, the cat just tapped it. We've realized that cat's gone on and just tapped it as they've gone past. So we now turn stuff off remotely. Other little things like that we can do. It's at least helps with some of those arguments. But it's a fun thing, and it's a little bit addictive as well. I'm trying to stop myself from buying stuff, although I did order some lights the other day and got some things and electrocute myself, so that was a thing. So yeah. I'm still here, it's fine.
Talking about the dark side, can you control the stuff through the Windows or Android?
So talking about dark side, Windows or Android, no, it's the Homebridge stuff is piping it into the Apple Home API. So if you go that route, I believe it's Home Assistant or one of those. If it's awful, just get a plug and just turn it off. And on that bombshell, thank you.
See, my title there, listen to your users. That'll become a bit more clear in a minute, hopefully, but it should be fairly straightforward. Right. So about me. Hello, I'm Mike. I am. I'm currently an IT systems engineer at Smart Pension. I've been there for about 2 years, and Troy McClure is there because you might remember me from previous London Apple Admin Talks. Only because I was looking back to see when I last spoke, and it turns out I'm on a 3-year cycle. So I spoke in 2019, again in 2022, and that's 2025. So you're stuck with me, I'm afraid. Right. Yeah, maybe. So Smart Pension, my employer, we are a pensions company, provide workplace pensions, and we also provide a pensions platform that other people can buy into. There we go. That's the corporate bit done. And about this talk. So this is deliberately, it's a very different talk to David and Joe's. This is not, it was not a big project. I think it was about 2 or 3 days of work. It's not, I'm going to say it's not technically impressive. I don't think I've done, you're shaking your head, Dan, you've not even heard it yet, but I don't think I've done anything that anybody else couldn't do fairly easily. But part of that's deliberate. I want to encourage everybody here to volunteer to talk. And I know from myself, often I sort of, maybe imposter syndrome, maybe it's real. I think, you know, I haven't done anything worthy of delivering a talk. And I'm not going to deny that. And I think that's probably still true, but I'm coming to talk about a project anyway. So here you are. Yeah, so it's a project about creating a user feedback form for our IT tickets. It was fun. It was fairly straightforward, and I think it was helpful to the business. I'm not going to get too technical on it tonight in terms of particularly the Okta workflow stuff. Partly that's because you could do the same thing with a dozen different platforms. And so it doesn't really matter the details of the Okta workflow stuff. But what I do want to do is kind of pick out some of the design decisions and the challenges along the way that if you're thinking about doing something similar, that you would probably need to consider. And so I thought I'd carry on the Simpson references through where I could. When you're doing a project like this, as I'm sure you will all know, you need to start with a plan. If you don't have a plan, then it's all going to go wrong. And so you need to start by understanding what it is that you want to do. And much like a Homer Simpson fiendishly clever plan, this was our initial plan. This was pretty much the Jira ticket that got handed to me by my manager. And I got told, yeah, we need to do this. So the background to this was we'd changed our IT ticketing system. And our old ticketing system had a feature where when a ticket was closed, I think it was not on every ticket, it was a random selection. It would send out an email to ask a user for some feedback. And we moved to Jira Service Management, and it, I think, doesn't have that feature, or it was very, very basic. And so we needed to roll our own system. And so this is what we needed. We needed, we want to send a message in Slack because everyone uses Slack. It's hard to ignore, easy for stuff to get lost on email. We wanted to ask some questions. Specifically, we wanted to ask 4 questions where there'd be a rating from 1 to 5. And then we also wanted to kind of give an opportunity for further sort of free-form text if somebody wanted to complain about something or I don't know, maybe be effusive with their praise or whatever it was. And then we needed to grab those answers and attach them to the Jira ticket. So that was fairly straightforward. But then we sat down to think about it a bit more. And we realized we needed to embiggen our plan a little bit. It's a good word. So we've expanded it. So yeah, we've got Slack message. Yes, we've got some questions. First of all, we realized we needed a little bit of interactivity because user gets presented with this form, and what happens when they submit the form? How do they know it's been submitted? Or maybe what's to stop them submitting the form again and again and again, maybe changing their answers each time? Like, you'd never know what what the actual true value was. So we needed to kind of be able to kind of close off the form when they'd submitted it and say, right, that's it, we've done your feedback. But equally, if they hadn't done the form, we needed it to be obvious to them that it wasn't complete yet, and they get prompted. Yeah, we need to capture those answers. The other thing we realized was we need to get the answers, but we also need to capture the questions that we asked. Because you can imagine if we change the questions at some point, we decide to reword them, the user might not complete the form immediately. Maybe they do it 2 weeks later. And if we just captured the rating for a question, the question that we thought it was might have been different to the one that it was when that showed up in their form. So we wouldn't know what question they were answering unless we actually captured the text of the question as well. So that was our plan. And as Homer says, trying is the first step towards failure. So we had a little, I had a little think about this and thought, how are we going to do it? And first thing I thought of was Slack workflows. We were going to do this in Slack. Slack has this workflows feature. It's interactive, great. Keep it all in one product. And you can do Slack workflows. You can have them trigger on a webhook, which is great. So ticket gets closed. Jira sends off a webhook. Slack workflow happens. You can put placeholder variables in your Slack workflow. So you can say, you know, instead of just your ticket, it's your ticket kind of ABC 1, 2, 3. All great. But then we hit snag. What you can't do, as far as I can see with Slack workflows, is choose where to send this message to based on some input. So you can have a Slack workflow run in a particular channel. So Officer Crabtree in the London channel on Macam in Slack, he posts in that channel every morning. You can have that be a direct message to somebody, but it would be a direct message always to the same person. So if you only want one person in your company to fill in these feedback surveys, then that's great. Otherwise, you're out of luck. So we couldn't do that. So we thought, well, we have to do something a bit better than that. And the solution we came up with, we're an Okta shop and we use Okta workflows. And we decided to use that. Now, the secret sauce that kind of really enabled this to happen is this thing here, Slack Block Kit Builder. It's not easy to say. It's a great little tool. It's basically a web GUI it's a sort of WYSIWYG editor for Slack messages. So if you know anything about Slack messages, they're built on these things called blocks. You can drop them in, you can edit them. What this does is lets you kind of design your message. You can pull in these blocks, drag and drop. You can change the settings, and then it basically gives you the JSON code for that message that you can then copy and paste and use somewhere else. Really good thing about this, when you set this up, URL here, but when you log in, you have to be logged into your Slack instance to use it. And when you start using it, it gives you a sort of private internal URL for this instance of BlockKit Builder that you're using. So you can create some stuff in there, and you can then share that URL with somebody else in your company and say, hey, this is the form I've designed. What do you think of it? You can, as long as you save the URL, you can come back to it later and edit it a bit more, and it's all there waiting for you, which is really handy. Now, the one limitation of using Slack as a platform, and for very good security reasons, Slack won't let you run any sort of external code in there. So you can't run JavaScript or anything like that, which does kind of limit what you can do in some ways. So I'd have loved to, you can see on the screen here, what these rating questions, I've got a drop down with 5 different answers with different numbers of stars. I'd have loved to have something like you get on Amazon where you mouse over the stars and they light up as you go over them, and that would have been really nice. No option to do that. It's not a Slack thing. So we were kind of stuck with the design elements that Slack gives you. That's kind of, it has pluses and minuses. It does mean that your form is going to end up looking very Slack-like, which is great. It means it sort of fits in, it's familiar. But the downside is that, you might have grand ideas, but actually you can only do what you can do with the Slack blocks. But anyway, a really useful tool. I'd say if there's one thing you take away from this talk, and you've not heard of Slack Block Kit Builder before, then please take that away. I mentioned Okta Workflows. We're going to use Okta Workflows to deliver this Slack message. You could use, as I said earlier, you could use any of half a dozen different tools for this. You could fairly easily code something in Python or other programming language of your choice, as long as you can make API calls and handle some JSON. You could do that. But we're using workflows. And that's good in our team. It means that it's a bit easier for other people to collaborate on this tool and make changes and so on. So the bare bones of what we need to do, we had that message in JSON form, all those blocks there. We need to deliver that in an HTTP post request to Slack. That's it. We need to know who to deliver it to. So we've got the user from the ticket, from the Jira ticket. They're identified by an email. So we just need to kind of translate that into a Slack user. We've got that payload there, and we just need to deliver it. Now, a couple of options. If you are an Okta Workflows user, you've got this JSON payload. A couple of options as to how you kind of work with that. You can just treat it as a big string of text. Makes your workflow really simple because you've just got kind of one card there. You just dump all this JSON into it. The downside of that is that if you need to edit it, it gets quite complicated. It's very easy, in the middle of JSON to miss a comma or forget some quotes, something like that. Really difficult to spot that if it's just a big long text string. The other option is Okta Workflows works quite nicely with JSON objects. So you can kind of build them up, a whole series of cards, building up this JSON. Kind of conversely, makes it easy to troubleshoot, makes your workflow less compact. So that was kind of my approach. I like to have it all nicely structured. But it does mean that my workflow is several monitor widths wide. And in fact, what I did was I used a feature in Okta Workflows called Constructor Builder. It's designed for making your own integrations, but you can do other things with it as well. And I just kind of made my own integration, but put all this construction tucked away in Constructor Builder. So when you look at the actual workflow, it's just one card, a sort of custom card. If you want to kind of dig into the form feedback form structure, then you need to kind of go into Constructor Builder and edit it in there. Makes it less likely that somebody's going to break something. Right, so we're going down this route. We know the form we want to use. We're going to use Okta Workflows. On the Slack side, we need to create an app for this. Now, creating an app is great because it makes your form look more professional. So in Slack, it will pop up in the bottom section under apps, and it will have its own kind of app name and so on. It lets you get a client ID and secret that we need for working with the Slack API. And you can, and you definitely should, set collaborators on your Slack app. It means that other people can edit it. If you get hit by a bus, then it's not forever lost. I always struggle to get to the app builder section in Slack. They seem to have made it the most difficult thing to find in the whole thing. It was taking me about 20 different clicks. That's the URL there. That'll take you straight there. Now, when you set this up, you go in, create a new app. There's a few things you need to do. So You can, and probably should again, give yourself an app name, little description there so people can understand what your app is doing. Great to give it a little icon. So this is one I pulled out of the SF Symbols app, which you can get on a Mac. If you're not familiar with that, then Dr. K at Jamf has done a great blog post. She blogs under modtitan.com, worth checking out to explain how to use SF Symbols. And there's a good selection of little icons and things you can use there for your own purposes. One gotcha that I struggled with initially when you want to install this app, and I'm not quite sure if it's only if you're installing org-wide, but the, well, sorry, step back. The documentation generally, you'll be aware of this thing that, you know, these days, everything is an app, right? So you go to the App Store, you get an app. You go on a website, you're using an app. And it's the same in Slack. So Slack talks about apps. But then when you start reading documentation, it's clear that a Slack app is not an app in the traditional sense. It's a front end for an app. So when you read the documentation, there's this expectation that you've got something, you've already got a back end running. So it assumes that, you know, you're a, I don't know, maybe you've got a restaurant review site, and what you're doing is you're taking that back end and you're putting a front end into Slack. And that confused me for a little while because I didn't have that. I was just trying to build something from scratch. And part of this is you go to install this app and it says, oh, you need a redirect URL. I was like, well, I don't have a redirect URL. I literally don't have anything. I'm just building it right now. It turns out what this is, it's just for installation. Slack needs to be able to make an HTTP call out to something that will return a 200 response. It doesn't care what's there. It's not going to send any data to it. It doesn't expect anything back other than this 200 response. So Okta Workflows works quite nicely for this. You can just create a blank workflow. Say you want to trigger it with an endpoint API call. So it gives you a URL. Pop that into Slack. Slack says, yeah, I can hit that URI. Great. That's it. It's done. And I think you can delete your workflow again afterwards. It's only just for the installation. But that was a slight gotcha. And then because we're going to do some interactivity, we're going to, this is a form, we want people to respond. So in the interactivity section of your app, you need to set a request URL. And again, this is going to be the triggering URL for, in my case, for an Okta workflow. So at this stage, worth creating that workflow just to get the URL, pop it in. Your workflow is blank at the moment, but that's fine. Okay, so we are ready to go. We've got a form. We've got our Slack app. It's given us an ID and secret. So we can now send the survey out to people. So here's sort of highlights of my Okta workflow here. You can see it's kind of on demand. So we've got this URL that we're going to use to trigger it. So the way it works is because we're using Jira. Jira ticket gets closed. Jira sends has an automation to hit this API endpoint, and this triggers the workflow. The input for the Okta workflow here, we're expecting three things. We want a ticket number. We want a ticket reporter, so the person who raised the ticket, and we want the summary text for the ticket, so the kind of the title. And because we're going to put that in the flow. And the first thing we do, so I've got an Okta card here. We want to translate that reporter's email address into a Slack user ID, and we can get that information from Okta. User assigned in Okta, so pull that out. We're going to take the ticket number, and Jira Service Desk tickets URLs are predictable. It's a string, and then you just slap the ticket number on the end. So we do that so that we've got a link back to the ticket. So we can put that in the form and say, hey, you know, we're looking for feedback from this ticket. Here's a link to it if you want to see what it was. And feed those in to my custom card, send the survey out. So that all works really nicely. And I was playing with this quite a lot It's great in Okta workflows. You can just trigger the flow, you feed dummy data into it. And so I sent myself a whole load of different surveys as I was working through this and got it all working. And this is kind of what it looks like. So this pops up in the Slack app. You've got these 4 questions with the drop downs, and made some good use of kind of emojis to try and brighten it up a little bit and help somebody understand. So I've rated them from amazing through to poor. And then down the bottom, we've got our free-form text field there that people can put further comments in. Now, so that's great. Form's gone out to the user, and they've maybe clicked on some drop downs, and turns out that the way the Slack form works, interactivity in the Slack form, it fires back every time you interact with the form. So if you click on a drop down and choose an option, it goes, okay, trigger the workflow. If you start typing in the box, I'll trigger the workflow. Now, that's fine. We don't really care if we get more hits on the workflow, but obviously we don't really want to be reprocessing every time somebody's changed their option because they're being indecisive. So the first thing we needed to do was check whether they'd actually hit the submit button or whether they were just clicking one of the drop-down options. That's easy to do. Some of the data that comes back from Slack has this action section with an action ID, and the action ID for the submit button is button submit. So first thing we do is that the action ID we've got? If it isn't, then the Okta workflow can just stop. Doesn't care about this trigger anymore. It'll wait till it triggers again next time something happens. So once we know that the users hit the submit button, the next thing we need to check is have they actually completed all the drop downs? Because if they haven't, we'd rather kind of prompt them to do that rather than just accepting one tiny bit of data and closing everything off. This is a little bit tricky. The format of the data you get from Slack has 2 sections to it. One is a blocks object, and that has information about the form. So that's kind of what were the form fields, what was the text on the form. And then a completely separate section is the state object, and that's what value did you select for all the different drop-down fields. And you know, what was the value of the text field and so on. And the only way to kind of marry those up is this alphanumeric string that gets assigned to each field. So you kind of have to read these 2 sections and go, okay, yeah, that was the one asking about the timeliness of response. And if I look in this other section with that same reference, then I get the value that the user assigned to it. So what I've done, we zip through all the fields, match up the values with the data. I mentioned earlier we want the question as well as the answer. So just kind of pull those out and construct a nice little object with just the data that we want. And once we've done that, then it's really easy to check whether the user's actually done all the drop downs. Because if not, then some of them will still be blank. And so we want to prompt the user to kind of give them some information about how they've completed the form. So if they have left some of those drop downs blank, then we need to tell them and ask them to resubmit. So that's the one on the left here. You see, we put this little message down at the bottom saying, hey, you know, please would you make sure you actually complete the form before you submit it? Thanks. Okay, thanks. And we leave the rest of the form as it is. But if they have completed the form, then we needed to do something to stop them trying to resubmit the same form again. And you can see that here on the right. What we've done is we've taken the form fields, taken those away and just replaced them with the answer that the user selected. So here, I think this is me rating myself probably, but I rated myself as amazing for everything. And so those are now fixed values, just as a reminder. And then little comment there at the bottom, I love IT. Yeah, who doesn't? But again, that's just there as a reminder. So the user can see what they submitted on that form. but they can't go back and change it. And then we got rid of the submit button, and that's just been replaced with a little thank you message down the bottom. So the user's got a kind of clear visual indicator now that that feedback form is done. If they've changed their mind about those values, it's too late. Yeah, they can't resubmit again. And the way that works is obviously this is a message that was already in their Slack. So we had to kind of go back and update an existing message. Turns out you can do that. When you get that JSON data from Slack, one of the things it includes is the timestamp of that message. So that's the unique identifier of each message. So channel, user ID, and the timestamp. And so we just capture that timestamp and then edit those blocks, those JSON blocks for the message to how we want them to be, send that back, but include the timestamp this time. And it will go back and instead of posting a new message, it will update the original one. So that's quite nice. Sits there as a little reminder. Okay, so we're nearly there. We've got the data. Slack's been updated. User side is all done. We just need to actually capture that data into our Jira ticket. So that was fairly straightforward. Process the data, put it in the format that we want for Jira, which was the 5-question text and the 5 answers, and then an API call into Jira to update that. So yeah, that's all working nicely. Pretty happy. I thought I'd just leave you now with one quote from Lisa Simpson. Remember, Dad, all glory is fleeting. You may think you've done really well, but it'll all break again tomorrow. But yeah, thank you. Any questions? That's fine.
Have you seen an increase in the feedback surveys by moving to this required?
I don't know what the feedback rate was prior. I think on this we're not as high as we'd like. It's quite interesting because I can go into Okta workflows and I can see how many hits we get on the flows. Not that I particularly spent time doing that, but the ratings are really good, but the feedback rate is maybe not as high as we'd like, maybe 40%, I think, or something. But it's I have my brother-in-law works in this kind of market feedback sort of area. He tells me if you want good feedback rates, a simple form would work better than asking lots of questions. So if your main interest is finding out what your users think about your service, then ask one question and just give them a free form text to say whatever they like. I think our requirements are slightly different. So part of this is about being able to rate speed of response and maybe compare different IT staff, identify training areas, that sort of thing. For that, you really need numeric data. And you do start then having to ask specific questions and be able to plug that in. Otherwise, somebody's just spending their time reading through feedback responses.
Have you thought of any strategies to try and encourage? Have you thought of any strategies to try and encourage your users to submit more feedback, like gamification, that kind of thing, competitions? Who can submit the most gets some kind of reward at the end.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I haven't, but I think that would be fun.
A leaderboard, like top 5 users submitting. I was going to say, it's like having a leaderboard, like a weekly or a monthly leaderboard. The top 5 users who have submitted the most tickets.
Yeah, that would be.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's hard to know, isn't it? Especially when the scores are good, are the ones who are not submitting just because they'd rather, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. And we do need to get that feedback out, but yeah.
So it's not a silly question. what's the feedback on the feedback process been? Like, you know, the people, no, but really, this is all good. It's inception now, you know, but really, the people who've used this, they say, well, this is really nice. I really like using Slack. This is really great. Or you're lucky to get the feedback at all. So,
you know, it's like Steve, crickets.
When you completed this, sorry, when you completed this project, because it was originally a ticket submitted by your manager, did they then get a feedback survey for that ticket?
And so no, this is running on IT engineering. Our work is on a Jira board, and this is on Jira Service Management. So yeah, I don't get feedback responses from my work, sadly. Maybe good. So, anyway, thank you.